For Victims and Villains, my name is Josh, and today we are jumping into Edgar Wright's The Running Man. The Running Man tells the story of a man named Ben Richards who goes on a game show in a post-apocalyptic world to try and better his family's future. Now, much like The Long Walk released earlier this year, this is a Stephen King adaptation during his Richard Bachman days. And The Running Man is a book that I had the fortune of reading and discovering earlier this year in anticipation for this movie because A, I love Edgar Wright, B, I love Glen Powell, and C, as if I need another reason to love a Stephen King story. And this one does not disappoint. And in my opinion, the book is fantastic, but what Edgar Wright and Glen Powell do here just is absolutely astronomically one of the best movies we've seen this year. Now, I get that that is a bold statement to make. We've gotten a lot of really good Stephen King adaptations. Welcome to Derry is knocking out of the park week in and week out. The Long Walk, again, was another fantastic, outstanding adaptation. But this movie in particular might end up being one of my favorite films of the year. First off, Glen Powell just continuing to prove how he is the modern day definition of a movie star. Like, this movie almost feels nostalgic because I feel like we don't get a lot of movies that end up being this spectacle without a franchise attached to that. This movie definitely reminds me a lot of Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible, especially with some of the big spectacles and big moments within the course of this film. Glen Powell really reminds us as to why he is one of the best actors kind of working today, really embodying a lot of that late 80s, 90s, and even early aughts movie star that we don't really get a lot of nowadays. I feel like we don't really live in this era where movie stars sell tickets the way that you would back in the day. And I definitely think that Glen Powell definitely makes an argument for why that could be relevant because he just knocks out of the park. There are so many moments within the course of this film that I just absolutely fell in love with Powell's performance here. This is probably one of my favorite performances I've seen him in. That's not to say that I've ever seen him turn in a bad performance, but here he is just absolutely phenomenal and really is the anchor of this film. And just his emotional kind of through all journey throughout the course of these 2 hours is just impeccable. And his performance, whether it is embodying the charisma of Ben Richards or it is embodying the emotional depth that this character needs, he just brings his A game through and through. There's a lot of bit characters in this film that I absolutely freaking loved. Colman Domingo is a great example of that. He has this just energy about him that every time you're on the screen, it's like, this feels like something out of time. You know, when you go back and you watch some of the game shows from the 60s and 70s, and you have these game show hosts that just embody the definition of charisma, Domingo embodies that so freaking well. And even when he's having those moments of kind of off stage, they're very few, but even when he has those off stage, there's still a brilliant character moment for him. And I absolutely just loved him. And I thought that he just kind of brought a very unique spin to this, but also at the same time, it felt very familiar. And I just loved him in this movie. And I thought he does a fantastic job. Michael Cera, who surprised me in this movie, absolutely crushes it. I loved Michael Cera in this movie through and through. Absolutely one of my favorite parts. His performance is both kind of funny, but also at the same time really emotionally endearing and borderline heartbreaking. It's probably one of my biggest surprises with this movie. Daniel Ezra is in this movie, and he plays a character named Bradley, who in the book actually was my favorite character of the book. And I really loved his performance. I really thought that he kind of brought it in and really kind of gives his own spin on it. I thought he did a outstanding job, and truly, even for as little bit of screen time as he gives, certainly leaves an impression. And I really honestly is one of those actors that I can't wait to see what he's going to do next. I thought this movie surprised me in a bunch of different ways. Now, the novel drew a lot of emotion out of me as I was reading it earlier this year, but I feel like what Edgar Wright and even the performances here from everyone that I've mentioned, from smaller parts like Domingo and Ezra to larger scale parts like Powell, really draw out the emotions, and it just hits differently when you see it performed by people rather than when you're imagining it, reading it. This movie made me laugh way more than I thought it was. Like, I don't ever remember laughing during the book, and I really think that that is kind of just Edgar Wright's kind of signature little qualms. You know, when you get your start doing films like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, I feel like it's kind of expected that you're gonna hit some of those comedic notes, and I definitely think that with the addition of certainly character actors like Michael Cera, you're definitely going to get those. And those were a welcome addition here. But I also think with the timeliness of this story, the original book was written in the 80s, where a lot of this stuff seemed fan fiction. And now, this story being released in 2025, I beg the question of how far are we from this reality, where it definitely seems like the political undertones of this film, whether it's intended or not, definitely feel way more timely than I think King originally intended. And I think that's what makes this movie hit just a little harder in 2025. So the emotional aspects of this, whether you're talking about Powell's reason for doing The Running Man, the game show, or a lot of the undertones of what the character of Ben Richards ultimately ends up being by the finale of the film, hit just all of the right emotional notes. I think the emotional core of this film just hits so profoundly that it literally drew me to the edge of my seat and kept me glued there, literally from the opening frame of Powell's monologue until the very end of this. Even throughout the credits and the artwork that they did, I thought they just did an incredible job with this film and just bringing the source material to life in probably one of the best King adaptations we've gotten to date. With that said, I am ready to run this one through our Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give The Running Man a 5 out of 5. I think this movie hits all of the right notes. It's one of the best Stephen King adaptations we have gotten. Glen Powell is outstanding in this. All of the character actors work tremendously well. The emotions hit, the comedy hits, and everything about this movie is just fantastic. I loved how evenly paced this movie was. I loved how it drew me to the edge of my seat. I loved how it drew laughs out of me, but also made me feel and just really embody some really hard emotions as well. Wonderfully done, Edgar Wright. The Running Man is now playing in theaters everywhere from Paramount Pictures, if you guys have seen it. And if you guys have even read the book or seen the Schwarzenegger version, comment below and let me know. But let's talk about mental health, shall we? If you guys are new to our content here at Victims and Villains, we create content like what you're watching right now, simply to talk about mental health and really what mental health teaches us through the art of pop culture. And Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're reviewing, talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. When I talk about the driving emotional force of Ben Richards, the Glen Powell character throughout the course of this film, it is his family first and foremost. And I think ultimately what you kind of see throughout the course of it, whether he likes it or not, is that ultimately family is more than just the people that you marry or are blood related to you. It can be so much more, and that family should be driving force. Now, whether that's biological or that is a family that you have made or acquired over the years, it goes back to the things that we've been talking about over a lot throughout the course of, more specifically on our most recent episode of Abyss Gazing with Community, and just essentially boiling it down to the importance of community and the importance of family. Because at the end of the day, family is going to be the one thing that is going to keep you going. Family is going to be the driving force. Now, if you are in a situation where family has been bad for your mental health, I would encourage you to cut ties and essentially look for a new community, look for families, look for people that you can call brothers and sisters that will get down in the trenches with you and actually care about your mental health, have those hard conversations, and continue on. Because at the end of the day, community is going to be one of those things, family is going to be one of those things as well that is going to keep you grounded. It's going to keep you driving forward to continue pursuing a legitimate and passionate move forward with your mental health and your healing journey, and really just your day to day as well. If you or someone you know is currently struggling with mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, bullying, or suicide, please click the links in our show notes below to check out our mental health resource library. Once again, The Running Man is now playing in theaters everywhere from Paramount Pictures. And speaking of Paramount, if you guys would like to try a free month of Paramount Plus on us, where you guys can also support us and money goes towards our mental health education efforts, there's links in the show notes below for that as well, along with links to our social media, more movie reviews like this, our podcast network, and that subscribe button. So until next time, remember to keep it classy and keep running.